Today I'll be joined by Emmy-nominated actor, writer, author, evangelical.
Oh my goodness.
Yvonne Orji, most known for playing Molly on HBO show Insecure, even though we're not talking about TV today or right now, WGA Strong. But we'll be talking about her amazing book that just released in paperback, Bamboozled by Jesus.
Come on.
Congratulations on the book and the paperback publication.
Thank
because
you.
not everyone doesn't get that. So that means it's touching people when it's doing what it's supposed to do. And it caught me off guard because I didn't know I needed it.
Ooh.
At this particular time, and I really needed it a lot more than I thought I did.
Tell me more about that.
Because I don't project, and I don't think I know anything at all. I'm just a person who I'm in love with learning all of the time.
Yes.
And when, I'm reading through this book and I'm, picking up lines like assumption is the lowest form of knowledge, and, I'm like, yes, stop assuming,
yes.
And then just this whole idea of, taking those leaps of faith and what that means. So we're gonna get into that, but
I love that.
I would love if you unpack the title.
Well, first of all, that's one of the biggest compliments. It's a book that I didn't know I needed in this season. I'm like, that's one, thank you. It's funny, it's like you can do a lot of things in your life, and then the thing that is probably the most vulnerable or the most like self-excavating, that's the thing that I'm like, this will always be mine. It's like you can be a mom. I mean, you can be a wife, you can be a sister, but then when you become a mom, it's like the baby is mine, and I feel like I birthed this baby. The book Bamboozled by Jesus. The title is because sometimes that's how I feel. Like it's like even though I know I'm like in lockstep and in alignment with my destiny and with my purpose, sometimes I feel like I'm out here playing tricks on me though, because he'll tell me to do something, and he knows that one thing he knows that he has from me is my obedience. But that doesn't mean that my obedience doesn't come with questions. I'd be like, wait, what are we doing? Like, and why? And he doesn't give me all the information. He doesn't give a lot of us all the information because I think if he did, we would never go forward doing the thing that we are supposed to do. Like if he was like, I want you to be a comedian, but also for 5 to 7 years, you're gonna be poor. And I'll be like, something I guess I'm not gonna do a comedy. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, why would I do this willingly? Like, and maybe it helps if you like know when the end date is, like, 5 to 7, okay, I can pace myself. Maybe that would help, but then also maybe you'd be like, or I could get a job right now and never start this thing and like, be able to eat. Yeah, I'm not gonna do comedy. It's just,
it doesn't sound fun.
It doesn't sound fun but I live a very fun and fulfilled life now. You know what I mean? But in the process, I think that's what it is. The process bamboozles you, right? Because there's some moments where you're like, man, favor came through and I'm getting this opportunity and that. Like, God is so good. And then you're like, in like the next breath, you're just like, hey God, did you forget about me? Like, where you at? Like, remember that? Like when we was winning, we want more of that, But you
don't cheat the work. So it's like, you talk about, the idea of faith and how faith and fear can't live in the same space, but it doesn't mean you could just sit back on your hands. No. You have to be active. You have to get up and do something.
And sometimes you have to do something before you know what it is you're doing. Like in the book, I talk about how 2 times really, when I moved to New York, I bought a bus ticket and I signed up for a class. I had nowhere to live, but I was on that bus. You know what I mean? Because class starts in 2 days. So I'm gonna still go to the class, I'm gonna still go to the bus. And while in the 4 hours it took me to get from PG County, Maryland to Manhattan, I got a Facebook message from somebody who saw my Facebook message of like, anybody got a couch I can sleep on in New York? And she was like, call me. And she was like, you can sleep in my basement apartment. So I stayed rent-free in a basement apartment in New York for 6 months, but I was already on the bus. So if I stayed in Maryland, like, oh man, no one responded to it's like I'd have missed the class. I bought the bus ticket, I bought the class. And then when I was coming to LA, I stopped taking work as a wedding MC because I was like, I already know what this gets me. I know exactly what I can do as an MC. I want to know what I can do in LA as an actress or a comedian. And so my bread and butter stopped. And I bought a plane ticket. And the day that I was supposed to land in LA is the day that the internship I ended up getting 2 months after I bought the ticket was supposed to start. So those are the alignment things of like, You could I know people, I meet people, I have people in my family, in my circle of friends. Well, not in my close circle of friends, because I'm like, I don't say I can't be friends with these kind of people, but we all know them. And they're just like, I would totally move to LA, as soon as I get a job and an apartment.
Life doesn't work like that.
And you're just like, so then I guess you're never moving to LA. Like,
you have to be in somebody's face to even be, to get the opportunity.
Yes, the best advice I got was from Stacey Evans Morgan when I was kind of like dealing in like jump roping between New York and LA. And I was like, just keep me in mind for any projects. And she said very really, in the 6 hours it'll take for you to get from New York to LA, I would have already given your job away. And I said, ooh.
That's real.
I guess I'm moving to LA. Like
real.
in the 6 hours?
Real. That's real.
That's so real.
So I was in the barber shop a couple of days ago, and I was reading your book. Okay. And I told not my barber, but one of the dudes in the barber shop, I'm like, wow, Yvonne Orji is royalty, right? She's a queen. Right, or princess, so you can break down how it works, right? And he's like, nah, I mean, but you a king, and we're all kings, and I'm like, well, somebody had to work. We can't all be kings and queens. Like, I don't feel like a king. I feel like a work. I like coming to work. I like putting in long hours and staring at scripts that that don't make sense for 10 hours at a time. I'm totally good with it, right?
I love that, yeah.
But you are actually. Nigerian royalty.
My grandfather was the Ogwehi of our village, which means basically in our village, whenever there was like a dispute or anything that had to be settled, everyone came to his home. And now my dad is a titled chief as well. So yeah, but I think there are a few. Every village has their own Ogwehi.
So you have like a crown? Can you grant like wishes? I've been to Lagos actually.
You've been to Lagos?
Yeah, I've been to Lagos.
Ain't no wishes being granted in Lagos.
I mean, it's a fun place. I was really in Abuja and we for like a month, but we only went there for like a weekend.
What were you doing out there?
I was teaching in something. My friend Umala had this program called like Bold and Beautiful Youth Literary Forum.
Oh my gosh, I need to be a part of that.
Yeah, this was like way back in like 2012.
Yes.
But she since moved to Chicago. But it was
Abuja is more chill. Abuja is Maryland.
I like Lagos better.
And Lagos is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get into anything you want.
So one of the things, reading this book, it made me think about my grandma a lot. She's passed away some years ago, but because she always had like scriptures. She had a clip full of scriptures just ready to go.
So
know
you're
what
saying
I mean?
I'm a grandma.
I'm not saying
That's what I'm deducing from
I'm
this.
saying that I'm saying that you're like a newer version because, but in a good way.
Walk it out,
I'm walking it out. Let me walk it out. I was curious as to if you, and I know you had the challenge where you read the Bible for a year and you did the YouTube videos and things like that. And I was wondering, did you always have like this many biblical stories in you, or was it something that had to be refined for the book?
Yeah, I say in the book, I was like, this is not your grandmother's Bible study. So
well, you're better than my grandma because because she didn't. But I love her, but she didn't put like DMX into her Bible stories. And
for those of you who don't know, when you get this book, there's DMX references. If you listen to the audiobook, there is a bark. So
who also said some of the strongest prayers anyone has ever people who haven't been to them that Hard Knock Life, that Rockefeller Rough Rider tour, when he used to
pray?
I'm very, very I'm not emotional intelligent at all.
Yes,
but when he
I
did
feel
that,
like you're not giving yourself a lot of credit for all the things you are.
When he did that prayer,
Bro.
I was ready to break down.
Yo, one thing I love, the reason why everyone's like, who's your top? I'm like, DMX will always be one of my top favorite rappers. Why? Because I always felt, once I listened to It's Dark and Hell Is High, I always felt like there was just a battle for his heart and his soul. Like he knew what to do, but then he had these like demons that were like, do you really want to do that? So it was like he had a moral compass, and you could tell in his songs, like, and he was trying to push that. And also, it's like, how many hardcore rappers are like, let us pray? And you're like, what? Let us pray? Like, so I rock with DMX for a lot of reasons. But what was the question?
So the question was,
Oh, did I always have that? So here's the thing. I was raised Catholic. And so Catholicism, I think, gave me order and structure. And then when I turned 17, I was already a freshman at George Washington University in DC. And I went to a Bible study, and it was more like a non-denominational church vibe. And so I got a lot of practicality, like how do you apply the things of the Bible? And so that really helped me understand the stories. And then it was like, well, if the Bible is supposed to be applicable to today, like how do I take this story and make it relevant for my life today?
That's what we're missing. It's necessary. That's why your book is so important.
Thank you. Because it was just kind of like, we hear these stories like, yeah, and Joseph had a coat of many arms. I'm like, nah, fam. Joseph was sold into slavery because his brothers hated on him. They was hating on him. And then when he was trying to do right, he got put in jail because somebody else was like, that to me is just like, yo, everything's going wrong for this young man. And what was it about his faith or his belief in whatever the dream was that he got to be like, but I'm gonna make it though. And it was like, well, no. Maybe he didn't have that, but what he did have was favor. So even though the situations was trash, he some way, somehow, always came out on top. So that's why there's a chapter in the book where it's like, I may not win, but I always win. And so even
it's one of my favorite lines too.
Thank you. So even if you look at Coco, who just won, it's like, yeah, she won the U.S. Open. And then you can look at the other young lady and be like, she lost the U.S. Open. But it's just like, the day she lost, the very next day, she became #1 in the world. So I'm sure she would have liked the W, but it's like, I always say God gives you a backdoor blessing. So if we look at her, we're all chanting for Coco because we wanted her to win. But it's at the same time, it's like, well, sis, you didn't lose either. You're still the world #1. And so you can take that how you want to take that. But if you look at, I think one thing that the story of Joseph taught me was perspective in the midst of trash situations.
My favorite book, if I had to pick a favorite, not book, but my favorite story in the Bible is The Good Samaritan.
Oh, why?
Do you have a favorite? Because, I mean, the people who were supposed to help didn't. And you don't know where help is, you don't know where it's going to come from. So you can't project or judge or, lose the faith in people. The person who you think is an op might be your biggest resource, and you don't know.
And that's why my mom would always say, make sure you are nice to everybody you meet. You don't know if you're entertaining angels without your knowledge. And that's the thing. You don't
treat
know.
everybody like they're Jesus.
Treat everybody like they're good because you don't know who's who. I think I rock with Joseph, but I think a lot of times in my life I have felt more like Gideon because he was minding his business, and for someone who was bullied, for someone who always felt like on the outside, but kind of in my heart of hearts knew like there's more. But you can know that there's more in you, but when your environment doesn't feed that moreness, you kind of feel like, maybe, I don't know. And I was looking for God to tell me you're more, right? So, but Gideon wasn't. Gideon was like, hey, I'm cool with being the lowest. I'm cool with my tribe being the weakest. And when he gets this word, like, nah, this is what you're supposed to do. And he's like, I want to believe you. I do. Hold on. Okay, make this grass wet. Oh, you made it wet. Okay, make it dry, and then I'll believe. You know what I mean? And then it's just like, and then again, this is the bamboozlement of Jesus. God's like, hey, I need you to go save the people. You're going to go to war. By the way, you got too many people. These 3,000 need to become 300. I know he's like, fam, I already told you I wasn't really a warrior like that. Like, that's not my plan. And then it's like, all right, now you got 300. Cool. I know you thought you was going to fight with weapons. Yeah, put down your weapons and just blow the trumpet. That's when me and God are fighting. You know what I mean? Like, that's when we're throwing blows because now you're playing with my mind.
The book is so accessible because you take these stories and you apply them to your life and your journey, everything from moving to LA to the checklist from when you were buying your home, right?
Yes.
Like these things matter. I think, and I think that's a powerful part too. And this is why so people like the genre. So many people like memoirs, the genre so much because we get a chance to really connect with people in ways that we normally wouldn't. We're on strike right now. I'm a screenwriter, you're a screenwriter, you're an actor, so you're double striking, right? Could you talk about
Double striking, yeah.
Yeah, could you talk about the future of the industry and what you would like to see? Because I've read stories about some artists having to sell their homes. I read Viola Davis wrote that only 1% of actors make over $50,000 a year, and it's like really, really, really difficult, but we can do better.
I think people underestimate, like they don't understand that the term like working actor, like it's a job. It's a job, and I think Hollywood has done a good marketing job of the glitz and the glamour. So I think most people, when they think Hollywood, they think glitz glamour. But part of the people that make up Hollywood are people who are every day, like living job to job, paycheck to paycheck, gig to gig. You know what I mean? By the grace of God, I can be so grateful that I'm fortunate. But 7 years ago, again, this book came from all of the things that I experienced, like just 7 years ago. It's not like 20 years ago. No, this was 7 years ago, fam. Like I remembered like sharing salads with my roommate. And that was because I had a dream. And so it's like this strike is affecting so many people who also have a dream. It's like, can you imagine if you're like, hey, I want to be a coder for a tech company, and it's like there's no technology that can be thought about or created or even talked about, or or it's just like, so how do we advance? Like, how do we move things along? And so, I don't know. I think the future of entertainment in general is probably going to be more global. I think what we're seeing, just the solidarity that people in the UK have, people in other places, because if their structure is different. The UK, their TV is like government run, and I've had a chance to go there and talk to writers, and they're kind of like it's a debt ceiling, it's a salary cap in a way, because if Network X is like, we already have a black show, it's just like, so all my black show ideas have to just go into the abyss, and it's just like whoa. I think now we have a really good opportunity of bridging that gap. And one thing that I want to do specifically is to be that bridge, because I think there's so many stories to be told, not only of the immigrant experience, the black experience, the international experience. Like it's like the Nigerian-British experience is different than the Nigerian-American experience.
Absolutely.
The Caribbean experience, the Haitian experience, the whatever, the Brooklyn experience. I think we always say black is not a monolith, but I'm like, but yes, let's see more of these stories that present us not monolithically. And I think that's a joy of mine in terms of the kind of work I particularly want to do.
We'll do better. Thank you so much for coming on. Can you please tell everyone where they can keep up with you and purchase this amazing book?
Yes, you can keep up with me at Yvonne Orji on Instagram, on all socials. You can purchase the book wherever books are sold, online, in bookstores. The audio version, I narrated, so you get all the box. So it's wherever audiobooks are sold. I'm around. I'll be in the streets.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is amazing.